video games are for nerds. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about them. That's why you're listening to The Week in Gaming, the only gaming podcast that breaks down the last 7 days and tears games apart from the inside. Ugh. So forget your worries, open your ears, and join Simon Miller and a co-host for the entertainment chatter you need. Also, screw Dark Souls.
Welcome to The Week in Gaming. My name is Simon Miller, and as you can tell by my voice, I may have gone and lost it this weekend working at EGX on the Square Enix stand for Just Cause 4, but we're going to talk about things like that as we get into things. But yeah, if I squeak at any time, now you know why. And also, if you never listened to The Week in Gaming before, it is a video game podcast about games where we cover everything that went down in the week. I'm sure you could have figured that out, but I like to be obvious. Also, all of this is supported by patreon.com/Simon316. So if you've got $1 to spare, please head over there and give what you can. And that's why I'm able to do stuff like this. And also why I'm always joined by my man, the one and only Sam Bishop. How you doing today, Sam? You right?
Yeah, I'm doing good. My voice is in a little bit better shape from the sounds of things. So,
well, I mean,
yeah.
I just had to go and, talk at half an hour. No, it was a half past the hour for like 8 hours a day. Now, it's a great gig to have. I like working for Square Enixes too. They're really, really nice individuals. But that
did they provide you with liquid to soothe the throat?
They did actually. They were very nice by that. They went out and they did cartwheels for me. They
awesome.
ran around after me like the lovely, lovely human beings that they are. So no, they are very good. Now I'm going to talk about Just Cause 4 in a little bit, simply because I could recite an absolute. I can recite everything about that game, or at least everything that they've released for that game. So I do have a few things to say about it, but I like to be transparent. Of course, they paid me to do that job. Let's not pretend otherwise. That's what I do. I'm a host. I'm a presenter. Somebody offers me money, I go and do it. Simple as that. That's the truth, and I like everybody to be aware of that, so there's no ifs, buts, and maybes. Before we do go into all of that, and there's loads of other stuff we can talk about as well, the big news of the week that broke over the weekend, I believe, is that TellTale Games is not only shutting its doors, you're not getting any of the last season of The Walking Dead. You say that like that's not the case, Sam. What have I missed?
It's not necessarily the case. So they released, it's today, I think, they're saying, we're working with other partners to try and bring it to you. So I think that's sort of their highest priority. I think they've cancelled things like Wolf Among Us 2, and there's loads of things that are definitely cancelled. But things that are really high priority, like Stranger Things, is getting moved away from TellTale. So not everything is in the bin as such. But I mean, it's one of those things hope for the best for Walking Dead, but there's nothing promised sort of thing. So it's good to know that they're actually trying to do Walking Dead. Because a lot of people thought it was totally going to be binned, which is a bit annoying in the middle of a season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was I'm going to get into my thoughts and feelings on this as we go. But in terms of simply a fan, whatever you want to call it, not getting the ending to a story you already invested in, and I'm sure some people are paid for, that kind of takes the biscuit just a little bit. So it's good to know they are going to try and do that.
Yeah. In
terms of what's happened itself, I mean, I'm not here to crap on anybody. I think any company is bad when it closes. I don't want anyone to lose their job, even if it's games I don't like. What's that got to do with anything? The human part of it, I never want anybody to lose their job, because that sucks. They've all got families and they've all got people that take care of it. Also, even if they don't, who cares? Nobody wants to lose their job. I hate it when you see people going, good for them. No, not good for them. It's going to change their life, and I'm sure a lot of people right now are going through very hard times. The reason I want to say that is because that's my moralistic point of view. If I put my business hat on, so literally talk about it as a business, TellTale, the real problem for TellTale for me, because I used to be a huge TellTale fan, I think The Walking Dead Season 1 is the best work they ever did. Genuinely emotional, genuinely, a great way, especially at the time, and I'm going to explain what I mean by at the time in a second, but the model that they had and the model they used to get that across, which was quite simple in its effectiveness and its approach, but managed to, work on its characters, work on ensuring that you felt the happiness, the sadness, the anger as and when, and with a bunch of choices that were a bit smoke and mirrors. You always kind of got to the same place no matter what you do, but that was kind of irrelevant. They managed to create the atmosphere and the sort of ambience that they wanted. And this is unfair to a certain degree, but for me at least, the problem was they peaked with that Walking Dead Season 1, and then everything else after that was trying to find out, well, where do we go next? And I don't ever think they really found what they were looking for. And instead, they decided it must have been down to the license as opposed to what we did. Went out there, spent what I can only imagine was a fortune on stuff like, well, we had Batman, we had Jurassic Park, we had Game of Thrones.
So many Game of Thrones, yeah.
Exactly. I think that was the issue, is that I don't know how much money they spent on these licenses, but I would imagine that Batman, if nothing else, cost a fortune. And it never really... they were taking this Walking Dead template that worked for The Walking Dead, but never really updating it or never really adjusting it to work with the licenses they were getting. Like Tales of the Borderlands, I'm sure that cost a pretty penny too. And that was the real thing about TellTale for me. I enjoyed the Batman games, the Bruce Wayne stuff. I thought it was a really interesting take on Batman. But if you strip away, all the furniture and the surface stuff, it was the same. And eventually, like everything, that's going to wear thin. And I think that was the real issue, especially something like The Wolf Among Us. Again, this is just speaking to me, and I'm sure people will throw their arms up in the air and go, what are you talking about? I'd never even heard of that before the TellTale games. So it's hard to think how that sold tremendously well, or at least sold enough to justify, them putting it out. Whereas something like Game of Thrones, that had the potential to be massive. I don't know whether you played them, Sam, but honestly, they just weren't very good. I'm not trying to be horrible, but they just weren't very good games.
Yeah, it seemed to be... I've never played a TellTale game, and everyone's going about... but it's just one of those things, I never got around to. But every time one came out, the unanimous opinion I seem to get from everyone is like, oh, there's another TellTale game out. You know what I mean? It just seemed to have that sort of like, oh, it's just... It almost, again, not to be mean, but it felt like it fell off an assembly line at times, because there was just all these licenses that were doing the same sort of choice-driven formula, but with a different skin of paint. And then I think the fatigue just wore on, and I can imagine sales wore down at the same time as well. And obviously they stretched themselves so much with the Stranger Things project, the Netflix Minecraft project they had going on, Wolf Among Us 2, Walking Dead. Those are just 4 projects that were in the pipeline when it majority closure. And it's just, I think it's just they stretched themselves too thin and switched things up with that new engine a bit too little, too late from the sounds of things. It might have been a case of mismanagement, but obviously you don't know behind the curtain. But yeah, it's a real shame about people not getting severance and stuff. And I think Rami Ismail put it best when it was like, focus on the people and not the games. Make Walking Dead if you can, but make sure the people are fine first.
Yes.
But that's the be all and end all of it, I guess.
No, I agree with you, and that's definitely the sentiment I want people to take away from this. We just need to look at the business end again. If you're doing a video game podcast and you don't, that would be ridiculous. But I mean, literally, I just got a list up here. I mean, the amount of money, because even if you go sort of way back to what they were doing, like Sam and Max, they went out, they bought Sam and Max, they bought Monkey Island. They did a game based on Wallace and Gromit. They did a game based on CSI. It's just, there's all Back to the Future they had. I forgot about Back to the Future. There was Jurassic Park, Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us, Tales from the Borderlands, Game of Thrones, Minecraft, Stranger Things that obviously only got announced and now is probably never going to happen, Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a risk. And it's a risk in the sense that if you can't keep progressing and you can't keep that interest up and you can't keep sales up, which is really hardest thing in the world to do in video games at the moment, and you can't keep your core fan base, which I would call myself at one point, at the end of that episode 1 of Walking Dead, I would have done anything they told me to do, anything, because I was so invested in what they'd achieved. But I never really felt like they smashed that magic again. And you won't find a bigger Batman fan than me. I love Batman. I'm obsessed with him. And again, really great games to go through. And I played them through mostly because they had Batman in it. But was I clambering for a Season 3? Not really. Now, was I clambering for a Season 3 that was utterly different from what I played? Yes. That is what I wanted. I wanted them to change things up. So I think that was my real problem with TellTale. I always wondered, okay, well, we're almost doing the Ubisoft model here of we'll keep releasing the same game, but we'll change the surroundings around it. But obviously they didn't have the money and the backing that Ubisoft had. And apparently, again, just rumors fluctuating around the internet, it was the company closed because they weren't able to secure a final, and quote, this is off VG247, but they were unable to secure a final and crucial round of financing. And when you're getting to those kind of levels where it's that touch and go, I think if you don't have something in your back pocket, eventually you are going to hit that thing. Because also, as successful as Stranger Things is that audience going to shift over? Is the audience even the same? I mean, you could probably argue that it is, given the amount of pop culture references in Stranger Things. But I don't necessarily think it was going to, bring them back from the dead.
No, I don't think any of those titles were company savers. The only thing is they could Walking Dead was, arguably, Not the later seasons, but straight off the back of season 1. But it all seemed just like, oh, there's a Game of Thrones game, that's pretty cool, and all the Guardians of the Galaxy game, that's pretty cool. None of these were big blockbuster titles that could bring a bad situation into a good situation, if you know what I mean. So yeah, none of it seemed very promising, really.
No, I agree. I just think that, again, the Game of Thrones story really sums it up for me, in the sense that I loved, I loved Game of Thrones at the time. The idea of playing a Game of Thrones game was, especially one made by TellTale, was enough.
Yeah.
And then I played the episode 1, and I was just like, this just isn't very good, or at least it's not enough to make me want to play again. So I didn't buy the rest of them, and I think that ultimately was the issue. I think that we needed to, you needed to capitalize on those people that were just trying these things out for the first time and give them a proper amazing experience. And I think by that point, that engine had kind of run its course. But again, it's all about money and it's all about time. And it sounds like they were just working constantly without actually time to change things around. So,
it's a real shame.
And it is, because they had something different. And also the big question is, for me personally, other than obviously I hope everybody gets jobs, from a video game point of view, what happens to Monkey Island and all that kind of stuff? I've kind of been banking on a new Monkey Island game for a while now. So, there's all this fallout from it too. But it does suck. Any company closing, especially a video game one, in such a difficult climate, is rubbish. And also because TellTale were doing something different. And I think, having someone offering something different in the video game space is really important. Even more so at the moment, is, again, the reason people keep betting on what we're used to is to stop stuff like this. They don't want to fall into things like this. So we do get, battle royale games and first-person shooter games and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real shame. It's just, what could you do, I guess? It's been talked about to death over the last weekend or so, but it's just strange how it came about, because it was there was murmurs of it, and then suddenly it just sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it really did. I remember I was at dinner during EGX and just, scrolling on my phone. Then all of a sudden, oh, well, TellTale's dead. Okay, that's that then, is it? Which is, absolutely madness. But the most important message here, obviously, I hope everybody can fall on their feet from TellTale, and I hope somehow in the long run this all works out for the best. As crazy as that may sound at the moment. In sort of better news over everything that was released last week, it certainly seems like Rockstar invited a load of people to go and play Red Dead Redemption 2. For some reason, the headline I kept seeing going everywhere was that there's over 200 species of animals.
Crazy.
I mean, that is nuts. And they all sort of, operate as they do. Apparently there's 19 distinct breeds of horse. Now, I don't even know where to start with that. But I think that if anything, that kind of sums up what I'm taking away from Red Dead 2. It certainly sounds like it's classic Rockstar, and the reason that it got delayed so long is that somebody clearly has OCD, and they play through these games and they go, nah, that's not how it would be in the real world, change it. To the point that everything's going to have complex ecosystems and, deer and bison and who knows what else not associating themselves with one another, because that's not what they do, and wolves are going to attack in packs and possums are going to play dead, because obviously if I play Red Dead Redemption and the possums don't play dead, how am I meant to enjoy it, Sam? Borderline impossible.
Have you heard about the horse testicles?
I've seen headlines, so I'll let you give me the big reveal. Explain horse testicles to me.
I mean, it's not a big reveal. It's just basically they expand and contract in the cold and heat, or vice versa. That's the level of detail they go into. The horse's balls change size depending on the temperature.
Okay, good. I'm glad about that. That's made me happy.
That's a new level of immersion that only Rockstar could provide.
Do you know what I mean? But that's what they do. This is what I mean. No stone goes left unturned, right? And that's why it's so cool, and that's why they're able to get away with what they're getting able to. I mean, I've read stories, on these previews about how people have gone up to NPCs and watched them cut carrots, and the way they cut the carrots, like one will fall off, off their chopping board, and the way the person picks it up, or the way it falls, and every cap obviously has the bit of string underneath. The way that's been animated is is crazy realistic. Just the sheer amount of content that seems to be put into it sounds ridiculous. I think they confirmed 4 mini games as well. I think it was hunting, fishing, obviously card games come back. And there's another one. I think it was dominoes. I can't remember,
and you're going to have hundreds of choices as well in the actual story.
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be. I mean, it's also got the thing that Spider-Man has, which I think is going to be the new thing in video games, where every single line of dialogue will be recorded normally as we're talking now, or it'll be shouted or done with effort, simply because they are, doing it from afar. And I know everyone raved about that in Spider-Man. It's clearly some new kind of technology, or I don't know, because I never heard it in many games before, but you have that as well. So, if you've moved away from one of your compatriots and you're shouting to them, or you're talking to them, they will shout the further you go away, which really is quite impressive when you think about it. Like, I don't develop games, but it certainly sounds amazing to me.
Yeah, it's just great to see this level of sort of detail, because obviously, like, not everyone can do that because of budget constraints and things like that, and it's just nice to have that sort of treat, you know what I mean? Like, I remember when Uncharted 4 came out and I was like, this is amazing, this grass looks fantastic, this shine on the wall looks incredible. And it's just like, you don't get that from every game. It's just nice. Obviously, like, there's different, the content is what matters, but when you see stuff that's really taken like so much manpower and money to make, it's just like, that is damn gorgeous.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it reminds you that it's not always about money, it's what you do with it. And I know that Rockstar have loads of money. I get that. But they have earned that right from releasing these games that do appeal to a lot of people. And the fact that they clearly do invest it back into their games. I'm not saying you have to like Rockstar, but if people that don't respect them, I'll be amazed. I think they've earned everybody's respect. And now they are trying new things as well. Like, you can customize your dude in Red Dead Redemption 2, and you absolutely could not do that in Red Dead Redemption. I don't think you could do it in GTA either. Could you?
No, GTA 5, you could have maybe a different colour jacket.
Yeah.
Page,
but here, I mean, I made a few notes from just doing my reading. You can have your guns engraved. You can change the look of your carried items. Yeah, you can change Arthur's appearance, in terms of... Because this is the cool thing. It's got a barber in Red Dead Redemption 2, which you'd expect. But his hair and beard grows in real time. So now, if you don't go to the barber, your beard and hair... I mean, that is... Again, we do not need this in a video game. But I tell you, I'm damn happy that it's there. Like, it's just so good. And it goes on, like, clothing... you can actually get into, do you want to tuck your trousers into your boots? Again, it's just this crazy amount of detail. I don't even think I would think about whether or not my trousers were tucked into my boots, but I guess that's Rockstar's job. That's Rockstar's job. What can they come up with that makes you go, what the hell have they come up with now?
And you wouldn't have thought about horse testicles, but here we are.
Exactly, and here we are. I mean, I need to see how this actually plays out when I actually play it. But apparently, I don't know what this means, but I read this about 9 different previews. It just says, allies will comment on your deeds contextually, and their responses will be different each time you visit. That is the most marketing line I've ever heard in my life. But I'm like, well, that could mean one of 1,000 things. I mean, is it a moral thing? Like, so if you do something bad, does someone respond to you depending on what their own views are? Can their views change as you play throughout the game? This also seems to be very centered on a camp. The camp sounds like your HQ, and you can upgrade certain aspects of that camp, which allows you to play more games, more fast points. You can stock ammo there, talk to people, sleeping area, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds like whatever you do, they'll be like, oh, that was really sick when you robbed that train, bro. Or like, why did you murder that family? That's really bad, or something like that.
Yeah,
I assume that'll be the case.
But that would be amazing, and I assume it does mean this. That would be amazing if those are bespoke things. So let's say that I kill someone that you don't, and somebody then comments on it in my game. That's a pretty impressive, bit of code to enter into any game, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
And we also need to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 Online. Another reason I love Rockstar. Red Dead 2 Online doesn't launch till November, I think, which is a good few weeks after the game. If anybody else said that their online mode wasn't coming day and date, they would be inundated with just what? Everyone just happy. As soon as it was announced, well, good, I'm glad I just want to play Red Dead Online.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's also kind of like a blessing for them because it's like another launch. Sort of thing. It's not that far after where it's going to be an inundation of players, but say you might have some people who are waiting, you get another surge of players. It's just going to be good, I think. Just good for everyone.
No, I do too. And again, just to read off what everyone's been reporting in case this is the first time you're hearing about it, the rumours are it will feature a narrative, competitive and co-op gameplay. You can enjoy it by yourself, you can enjoy it in friends, so basically like GTA 5 online. And the online portion uses the gameplay of Red Dead 2 as its foundation, and that will be updated and adjusted, but not in the same way that the single-player campaign will be updated, hence why it kind of operates as its own deal. Like, in a years down the line, Red Dead Online will be utterly different from Red Dead Redemption 2. That's just what Rockstar do. And apparently, obviously, there was rumours a few months ago that we talked about here on The Week in Gaming that, yes, we will get a Battle Royale mode. Nothing announced officially, just rumours. But I tell you, if Rockstar want to turn their attentions to Battle Royale mode, I'm absolutely going to give it a go and see what it's like. That could be the thing that gets me playing Red Dead Online, because otherwise I'm not really an online guy anymore. But if they do that, I'll certainly be interested.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the online part of it as well, because as much as I'm not really a Red Dead guy, it would be nice to be able to play online, you know?
Well, the people that got into GTA Online say that it's incredible. It's just not for me. I played with it a little bit. But yeah, apparently it's just... people are obsessed, and it makes Rockstar an absolute fortune, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be the dreaded shark card equivalents and microtransactions and stuff.
Oh, man. I mean, at least. It's also been a bit... I can't remember if this is a change. In my head, there was not a limited number of weapons you could control in Red Dead, but it's been so long since I've played it. But they're now saying you can only carry a limited number of weapons when on foot, such as sidearms, rifles, and bows. You'd also have a hunting knife, you can throw weapons, and obviously you've got a lasso, or lasso, however you pronounce that stupid word. And basically your horse is your inventory, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah,
so,
like a pack horse.
Yeah, exactly. So the closer you are standing to it, you're going to have more access to guns and gear, which again, kind of changes things up a lot, because how many times in the past, I did with games anyway, I just leave my horse. I'm like, whatever. I'll get back to you when I need you, or I'll do like the whistle mechanic and you can come near. But now it actually sounds like, depending on your positioning, you're going to have more options than if you don't. And that's just nuts. And the fact that you can target vital organs as well. I mean, well, I don't know. There's so we could go through this all day. I can't get over how they're going to take all this information and actually make it work.
Yeah, what a time to be alive.
Oh, absolutely. Also, Red Dead Redemption 2 has a first-person mode, which clearly is why they released it for GTA 5 when it came on the Xbox One and PS4.
At launch as well, which is incredible, because it came 2 years after for GTA 5.
That's why I think they did it, right? That was their test. They'd already released the game. The Xbox One and the PS4 were just like money in the bank, right? So they were like, look, let's test the first-person mode, and if we can get it right, we can just put it in Red Dead. So again, Rockstar always looking ahead. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned with the first person mode though. Just a little concerned, because it's just like in GTA 5, it felt like a third person game in first person. It didn't feel bespoke. I didn't want to play it in first person.
No, I didn't either.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with it, because I felt a bit gimmicky in GTA 5. But
yes, no, I agree. I don't think I'll ever play it in first person other than when I just jump in and jump out, because I want to see what it looks like. You know, I want to play Rockstar games in third person. I just do. But the fact that it's even there, I think the cool thing about it being there is that it kind of there's nothing you can throw.
Yeah.
At Red Dead. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Rockstar can go, well, actually, I did. You know, it's literally the case of no stone unturned almost.
Yeah, and it's like, if you don't have one thing, you've got about 1,000 other things that are good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Something for everybody. The only thing that concerns me, and it's the same reason that I couldn't really get on with Zelda, and I know I'm the problem, I'm an idiot, shoot me down, is the survival mechanics do seem quite heavy. Yeah, they do kind of, you know, tie into the gameplay a lot. Like I read a lot of stuff about hunting and bringing sustenance back to your camp, and that food won't last forever, and that it degrades, and you've got to make sure that you've got food, and there's no freezers obviously because you're in the Wild West. Nope. That's not necessary. Like, what's that new game that's called Scum? The game that's like like that. To me just sounds like hell. I'd rather die than play that video game. Like, I love checking my macronutrients in real life, but I certainly don't want to do that in a video game world, and that's kind of the level that it takes it to. So I never want to pass criticism too early, because every chance I play and go, again, classic Rockstar, right? This is the game where someone's actually made it work for me. But certainly on paper, that isn't high on my agenda. So I'll see what I think. But yeah, I'm intrigued about that.
Yeah, it's certainly not what I like doing, like micromanaging things like health and survival elements and stuff. That's not my cup of tea, really.
No, I agree, and sometimes I like to ignore that stuff in a video game. But hey, like, I'm being pernickety here. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't like Rockstar games, whatever. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 looks wonderful. It's the main game I want to play this year, not really too fussed about anything else, and genuinely cannot wait to see exactly what they do with it when it comes out. It's October the 26th, so like a month away. I think I'm intrigued to see what the reaction's going to be, but I think it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's going to be a mammoth game, whatever way you look at it, whichever way you cut it. So
I see some tens. I
think it's going to blow Spider-Man's figures out of the water, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. That kind of game on 2 systems? No, there's no way. And talking of tens, I mean, it didn't necessarily get any tens, but it got damn close to it. Forza Horizon 4 is released in 3 days, if you're listening to this on Tuesday when it goes out. It got some damn good report. I haven't played it, and I'll be completely honest to say I haven't really played many of the Forza Horizon games, even though they sound wonderful. But aside from the fact that everyone says if you've got a 4K TV, you get this game just to see how amazing it is. Genuinely, the scores and the feedback from all of it are that it is just an absolutely phenomenal driving game that looks amazing. Feels like kind of one of those driving games you get when you first buy a new console, and it looks amazing, it plays amazing.
One of those showcase sort of games.
Yeah, but because obviously it's Forza Horizon 4, they've managed to absolutely pack it with, so much to do that it's almost like a win-win. Like, and that to the point, I don't usually fall on reviews anymore because I find when I do, I get disappointed. But apparently, it's just, from what I'm reading, it's one of those games that if you like driving games and you don't play it, you're going to massively regret it.
Yeah, it's I looked at the demo and it's insane how good it looks. It's proper car porn because unlike, you get F1 games and it's all tarmac and everything, which is fine. But when you make the world around you as beautiful as the shiny cars in front of you, it's just crazy. I've seen someone share screenshots from a normal Xbox on a normal TV and I was like, what? What? This can't be, this got to be 4K or something, and it's not. And I'm not a big racing fan, so I haven't played it. I've only dipped into it and been like, this is cool. But yeah, I mean, visually it looks pretty cool. But I've heard it's the racing game for people who aren't fans of racing games, if you know what I mean. I've heard it's that sort of middle ground.
Well, you can get out of the car as well. I don't know why you can get out of the car, but I've just read things that you can get out of the car.
Okay, like Driver 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that. I don't think it's a big part of the game, but it certainly sounds like they've gone to town on it. I'm just really. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like you. I'm not a massive car guy, by any stretch of the imagination. But this just sounds like it's not just about driving cars; it's about having fun at the same time, and that to me is that's sometimes missing with the. I feel like we've moved away from arcade races game recently, and we get more of the Gran Turismos and obviously the normal Forzas, whereas Forza Horizon has been waving that flag, especially because something like Need for Speed has gone off the boil over the last few years. And I was more into that kind of, that kind of idea. This feels like it straddles that almost perfectly without forgetting what it's meant to do. And it's an open world racing game as well, which I often find can take. I sometimes just like track after track after track. But apparently the map is massive. The amount of cars makes it interesting. It looks ridiculous. It's fun to play. It sounds like an amazing game. I'd forgotten it was coming out, and now it's popped out from nowhere. I don't know necessarily whether it's a good time to come out. It's surrounded by all these games. I mean, we've got Call of Duty soon, and FIFA's just come out as well. But maybe it does speak to its very specific audience.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games that it's not got a lot of competition in its genre, and I think racing game fans will want this. And I don't think you're going to get any non-racing fans moving over. So I think if people want it, they'll get it, and this is sort of as good a time as any. So yeah, I think it's as good a time. If it's not Red Dead Redemption 2's launch date, then I think it's all good as a racing game.
I think you're right. But yeah, I wanted to touch upon it. I will try and play it if I can. But if you're into racing games, it certainly sounds like if you don't get Forza Horizon 4, you may have gone a little bit crazy. Right, moving away from the news side of things and things that we've been playing, I will talk about Just Cause 4 again. Complete transparency, I was paid a fee by Square Enix to host their demo stage at This Is EGX. But, again, it does also mean I've got to experience that game for the last 4 days. And genuinely, I'm quite intrigued by what they're going to do. I've said before, the Just Cause games, I always enjoyed what they were, but I always needed more narrative. I needed more focus. I have a short attention span, clearly. I can't just play a sandbox open world game without. I like a good sandbox open world game, but I need some kind of focus, some kind of sticky stuff through the middle that's going to keep me going. And that would be the same with anything other than Batman games, because in Batman games, I just want to be Batman. I'm a massive nerd. But from what I saw of Just Cause 4, and again at this stage, it's always going to be, you're not going to hear any negatives until it comes out and everybody can try it and see what they want. But from what Square Enix is saying, it certainly sounds like to me they've addressed all those concerns. But again, what we talk about just Forza, then they've addressed all those concerns, but also made sure they've kept it as open and as silly as everything you want. And genuinely, the grapple hook with it got a new attachment on it called the Air Booster. I tell you, man, I saw some of the stuff that could be done with that, and it genuinely did make me laugh. There's one part of that demo where he attaches it to a barrel, and he attaches that barrel to some woman's foot, and he just sends her throwing off into the sky. It sounds horrible. I mean, it could be a man, it could be a kid, it could be a dog. The point is, watching a human life just flail off into the distance, it's funny.
There's no place for morality in Just Cause. If you're going being offended by anything, then you're in the wrong place. You could strap rockets to cows and send them into space. It's not the place for morality.
And I think that was the thing for me. It's just the sheer amount of options and the sheer ingenuity that they put into it that you can just miss. Like at one point, they dropped a tank from the sky. They attached all these airlifters and boosters to it, and then in 10 seconds, you've got an air tank. And the most amazing thing about the game is never going to tell you to do that. I'm sure it will hint at it. Oh, maybe you should do this. But you can play through that whole game without ever touching across that. And at the same time, they are trying to, integrate a narrative and integrate a story into it. And I honestly believe this. Again, I've told you where I'm coming from, so you can decide whether I have integrity or not. That's completely up to you. But I genuinely think, if they can come up with a good narrative and a good story and make it feel a bit like, not Assassin's Creed. That's a terrible idea because I don't like the story in Assassin's Creed. I can't think of a game, but a game where it feels like if you want to ignore all the stuff around it, you can, and just enjoy a good story. Because I think the shooting and the combat in Just Cause has always been fine. I think it's, I think it is solid. To me, it was just that. Well, where's my drive? Where's my force? And I think if they've done that with, I don't know. I know at the moment all we know about the story is classic Just Cause. I overthrow the dictator. That's what Rico does. But I think if they can have some twists and turns and some swerves here and there, and that continue. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Honestly, going away from that show, and again, I should be bored of that thing given that I promoted it for 4 days. I will actually dip my toe into Just Cause 4 and see. If it can do everything it can say it do. Because, again, I'm confident if it can, it would actually be fun. I don't understand why it's coming out December the 4th. That seems an interesting date. But, again, maybe there's nothing else around that date. Maybe it's inspired. I'm not a marketeer, so it seems ridiculous me passing comment on it.
Yeah, it's I couldn't agree with you more, to be honest, because I played Just Cause 2 for a while, and then I was just like, I've had enough of exploding everything. I'm fine with that. I don't remember why I was exploding everything. It was just like, whatever. And that's the reason I didn't pick up Just Cause 3. I think it'll be interesting to see whether it can sort of reverse that image, because I think a lot of people will be like, oh, okay, cool, it's got storms and it looks really like the most detailed explosive sandbox ever. But I don't really want to pay for another explosive sandbox that I feel like it's just more bells and whistles. Yeah. And if they can make sure that people do pay for another sandbox because there's a bit more substance to it, then it should be really good, because obviously it's inherently fun. That's not the problem. It's just a case of making sure that people have a bit of meaning to what they're doing. And I hope they can, because that's all it really needs. That's the last missing piece of the puzzle, really. Yeah,
that's the thing, because they're not bad video games at all. I would have happily been telling you that at any point. They're not bad. They're very, very expensive, well put together video games by a team.
They do what they want to do super well.
Exactly.
It's just a case of adding another arrow to the quiver, really.
100%. And Avalanche Studios are really good at open worlds. I'm the first to say I think there's too many open worlds in video games. But like you just said, certainly Avalanche 100% know what they're doing. I just think in order to make sure that it separates itself from Just Cause 3, and I think Square Enix are well aware of that, they've gone and looked at it and go, well, what haven't we nailed? Oh, well, we haven't nailed the narrative. We haven't nailed the story. Let's focus on that while still allowing people to muck around with all these crazy things they get given. And I like all of that. I really, really do. And I came away very impressed with what I saw. And that's the idea of EGX. And that's the idea of these exhibitions, is to sell you these games. But they did. They sold it to me. And they did. Look, I'm not going to lie. They did the same thing with me last year when I worked for them. I promoted to Cydia for 3 days. And I went away and I was like, this is great. This is really, really, really good. Now that's crazy to me, because I do not care about Final Fantasy at all. But I tell you, man, I still played Dissidia today. So if they can do that again with Just Cause, I'll be more than happy.
Yeah, I'm just interested in it more than anything. It's one of those games that, like, innocent until proven guilty, but I won't be buying it until I hear otherwise. It's not an explosive sandbox without any substance.
No, I don't get me wrong. They've absolutely got to follow up on that, no question. But I again, from what I've heard and what I've seen, I think it would be foolish of them not to capitalize on that, which is why I think they absolutely will. But yeah, it genuinely impressed me. I mean, again, I was working so much, I didn't get to see anything else from EGX. I don't think anything else came out from EGX. I know a lot of people seem to be down on Assassin's Creed, which is, again, I just heard a lot of people playing it going, it's not what they thought. It feels too much like the last one. I am still going to play Assassin's Creed this year. I'm going to dip my foot back in, despite hating that franchise. Hilariously, I asked for I told Ubisoft I wanted to do this, and they got back to me and they said, we don't want to give you a code. Which I enjoy. Well, it's fair play to them. If they should do their research, and as soon as they do their research, they would find out very quickly all the stuff I've said about it, and they absolutely should go, we don't give this guy a code. There's no way this guy gets a code. But yeah, that's the only really thing I heard, and that, basically everybody just was still super excited about Spider-Man, which is crazy, given that it's been out a good few weeks now. But yeah, I mean, I'm just letting you know what I've been doing over the last few days. It was video game related, so I only thought it was fair to give you my take on everything that I saw. Right, Sam, also, we meant to talk about this last week and we didn't. My fault, I forgot. You went to that new video game exhibition at the V&A
yes.
2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Now, again, I had a look up at that and I was watching some videos too. I think it looks pretty damn good. But what was your experience of it?
So I think it's very, I don't want to say casual because it makes it sound like a nerd boy, very entry level. I think that's the best way to describe it, because obviously this is for everyone. It's not just for the games people. Yeah. So you go in and be like, this is one of the boss fights in Bloodborne. And it's like, cool. So, I mean, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. You're not going to go in there and be like, don't you know this monster from Bloodborne, sort of thing. So you're going to have to do a bit of reading over stuff that, it's a bit basic or whatever. So the first bit is design. Because the design play disrupt is 3 different sections of the exhibition. So the design bit is about, so they have like design notes for journey, like progress workflow documents and stuff, and concept art and video footage and like notebooks from the developers and stuff. So it's a real sort of love letter to games. Like it's a very case study based exhibition, like Bloodborne, The Last of Us, Journey, No Man's Sky, Splatoon, and I think that's probably it. There's probably a few more. So those games really get given some love. They go into a deep dive about what makes them, and the marketing around things like Splatoon, and then the design document, how they made Journey, and the art style of Bloodborne, for example. So it's all about showing them love, and that's a really cool sort of thing for those fans of those games specifically, to see mementos from the development. And then you go into Disrupt, which is all about talking about relationships that video games have with certain important issues, like foreign language, like gun control, women, age restrictions, stuff like that. And the great bit about this is that there's always, like, there's a looping video of people from the industry. Like, there's one of the Fulbright people, and there's Rami Ismail, and there's just loads of different developers and loads of different people who study video games talking about these issues, talking about how like the Arabic is wrong in games, and how sometimes, and talking about how gun violence has been addressed in games, and that's really interesting. And then you go into the play section, and it's not. I thought this would just be like loads of old video games and you'd have fun, but it's more like showing how video games can be played in unique ways. Like one video game is just an LED tube that you move lights up and down, and another one is a car that's been sawed in half, and then you use the steering wheel to control a pixelated game that's been projected on the screen in front of you. And then it's just a whole load of different things. And usually when you get video game exhibitions, they pretty much just throw a history of video games, and then you get to play like Pong and Tetris and see like, oh, in 1980s this happened, which is still fine. But this is actually a study of games and their impact on our culture. And that's a little bit nicer to see because it's a little bit outside the box. It's not just like, hey, Tetris. So, yeah, it was really good to see. And it was really nice to get the sort of like get them treated with seriousness rather than just being like, these games are fun and this was how they progressed. It's like, well, here is the actual hard work that goes into it that you might not see behind the scenes, and here is how they can impact our society and what the responsibilities they have. And I feel like a lot of mainstream audiences don't treat it with respect, if you know what I mean, because obviously our culture has to battle with mainstream press and things like that because they can often be vilified games. So it's really nice to see them be treated with a bit more respect and a little bit more seriousness than other exhibitions I've seen in games. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend checking it out. It's they got a great gift shop as well. So if you like gaming merch, at the end of that exhibition, there's a great gift shop. It's so good. So yeah.
What kind of stuff they got?
They got like PlayStation coasters, Nintendo beanies, and so there's just a mix of like different gaming franchises. So it's like the ultimate little gift shop for nerds, basically, and that's a good thing. not like a bad nerds. Like I loved all of it in there.
Yeah.
And also like Last of Us soundtrack and things like that. And I'm not sure where you'd ever get a Last of Us soundtrack if not online, and like Bloodborne and the art of video games like Dark Souls and stuff. So yeah, really good for people who like the behind the scenes sort of stuff.
I tell you, it does actually genuinely sounds really good, which is one of the reasons I want to talk about it. And I was doing some looking online. The one thing I can't believe is you mentioned all those games like Last of Us, No Man's Sky, Bloodborne, Splatoon. How does Splatoon fit into that? All the rest are kind of artsy-fartsy games, then Splatoon just pops up.
Yeah, I was a bit like, oh, there's a whole wall dedicated to Splatoon. And it's just weird. The design history, how they went from, because obviously it's a rigorous process making that new IP, and a really strict, because they were originally coming up with people in hazmat suits. Spoilers for the exhibition, but they were originally coming up to like with the guys with hazmat suits, which then turned into squids, and you see early design videos of the concept, and then how they made the merch, which doesn't really look like Splatoon merch, but it just uses logos from the game, talk about its marketing, talking about its products, like I didn't know you could get like water pistols like super soakers, but Splatoon, which makes sense.
Of course you can. Now you've said it, of course you can. Of course you can do that.
But yeah, that's that sort of surprised me. But it is interesting when you really think about it, because of course it's a new IP for Nintendo, and that never comes along. So it is interesting to hear about that.
Oh, absolutely, I think the whole thing sounds really, really cool. I'm just surprised that somehow Splatoon manages to.
Yeah, but alongside The Last of Us and Bloodborne, you've got Splatoon.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, it is cool. I genuinely think I'm going to try and get down to it. I think it really sounds interesting. And again, not the kind of usual affair that you'd expect. And I think that's important too. There's two things I realize we haven't talked about, which we will do before we wrap up this week's, because we never talked about. And before I give my thoughts, I'll get yours. The PlayStation Classic is coming to us all. If you know what the PlayStation Classic is,
how did we miss that?
I know, it's a small version of the PlayStation. I believe it's coming out in December. It's going to cost around about $100. Therefore, it will cost £100 because that's how the world works.
Yeah,
and it's basically the SNES and NES Mini. It's going to be loaded with 20 PS1 titles. You plug it in versus HDMI. Comes with 2 controllers. Blah blah blah. I think 5 games have been out. So I just got it up: Final Fantasy VII, Jumping Flash, Ridge Racer Type 4, Tekken 3, and Wild Arms. And obviously, the other 15 will be announced as and when we go. Also important to note that as soon as this announcement dropped, Sega announced that it was putting back its Mega Drive Mini, which was interesting. Now, I was never much of a Sony guy back in the day. I was a Nintendo guy. At that age, it's different. Even now, it's difficult to sort of buy both. However, when I heard about it, I saw the price and heard about the first 5 games. My initial reaction was I couldn't care less. But Sam, tell me otherwise.
Well, I'm a PlayStation guy. That's my first console. I loved it, and honestly, I couldn't care less.
Well, you don't want it either?
No. It's one of those games where I think people have a bit more rose-tinted goggles than they care to admit. Because I think with the Mega Drive, with the NES, with the SNES, those games are a little bit more timeless because they're on, that it was the height of 2D before we then moved into 3D. because like I think 2D got to where it could
Yeah.
what it could do, and obviously until you smooth out the frame rate a little bit, like Sonic the Hedgehog, for example, that's a perfect example. That is playable and enjoyable now,
Yes.
and it's not aged badly at all, unless you talk about frame rate and things like that. That's why Sonic Mania did so well, because it's basically like just a little bit more smoother version of that. But when you talk about the very early years of 3D, people don't seem to remember how clunky and shit a lot of it was. Like Tekken 3 is not as smooth as you'd like to think.
No, like it's not Street Fighter 2, for example. It's night and day, those two games.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy 7, I've not played it, but I've heard Final Fantasy fans say that going back to it is just awful, because obviously it's the early stages of 3D games. And if you look at games, this isn't on the PS1, but Banjo-Tooie, Banjo-Kazooie, they aged horribly. And they're all because this was when we were just finding our feet, which then got a bit more polished in the PS2, PS3, and then we got into our stride, you know. And I really don't think any of the games so far are really catching my attention either. A lot of people are saying they want Spyro and Crash, but I wouldn't see them putting them on there if Activision have currently got the license and they've just pumped them out on modern consoles remastered. Why would you want the old blocky versions?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's Final Fantasy 7 as well. Fuck me. Who hasn't played that game at this point that you need to go out and spend £100 on a mini console? I think it's a really weird. Again, it's not for me. It's not for me because I was never a PlayStation guy, and this is a nostalgia crowd. But I was really surprised about those 5 games. Like you've already mentioned about Tekken 3, you're 100% right. Final Fantasy 7, I don't know who that's for. I don't even know what Jumping Flash is. I genuinely don't know what Jumping Flash is. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it's just like, I think that PlayStation know that this will obviously sell because obviously, and a lot of people I think are going to plug it in and be like, oh, actually, it's not as good as I remember. Yeah. And then be like, well, you've already paid for it. So
no, it's true. It's 100% true. Do you think there's any games that have to be on there? Sorry, I'm just looking at Jumping Flash.
Metal Gear Solid is one that I said would be on there, but
do you think that's going to be wrapped up?
Not very well either.
But do you think it's going to be wrapped up in litigation though? Because there's going to be so much problems with licensing or stuff.
Exactly. That's the thing, and it's just a shame because all of these are going to be tied up because there's still existing franchises. So yeah, it's just. I just don't want it to release with loads of like half-assed titles. And
that's my worry, right? I'm looking at Jumping Flash now. It is garbage, Sam. This is no wonder no one ever heard of this. It's bollocks. I'm only kidding. If you like it, though, of course, I'm only kidding. But that was my worry when I saw those 5. Obviously, because it's basically Sony, Square Enix, and Namco. You know, it's that's my thing. And I can't think of any. Again, you mentioned Metal Gear, obviously, but I can't really think of any other games that. And what's Wipeout? Okay, great, but I don't know.
There's Ape Escape, but then again, if you look at the controller, it hasn't got analog sticks, so you can't have anything with analog stick support.
Yeah.
They might release an analog stick version, which would just be taking the royal piss, just charging even more money. But yeah, it's just right now I could not be less interested in the PS1 Classic, which is weird because I love that console.
But I mean. It doesn't mean you need that though. It's like, especially for £100.
How many games are on it by the end? Do you know?
20.
Do we know how much?
20 games. Yeah, 20 games.
Okay, so you're paying £5 for each game roughly with the console.
And you do get 2 controllers, and you get an HDMI cable, USB cable. So it's pretty. I mean, that's decent. But I mean,
if people like the games that are on it, and they're fully fine with the fact that they look and play shite, then that is absolutely fine. And I think people will get a lot of joy out of it. But I just don't think it's got the universal appeal.
Absolutely. If people are excited about it, honestly, more power to you. I genuinely mean that as well. I just saw it as like, I don't know. This is just not for me. And I really do think you need to get the likes of Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, and Resident Evil on there. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. I think there's going to be too many issues. Otherwise, I feel like you would have announced them already. I don't feel like you announced Jumping Flash if you know you've got Metal Gear Solid up your tank. I don't.
Yeah, surely you'd lead with Metal Gear Solid.
Yes, I mean, I would think so. I would assume so anyway. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was Devil May Cry has come out and it said it's got microtransactions.
Yeah.
And so we went with everyone being excited for it after they saw the TGS demo, which came out, I think, a week ago. It's just over a week. This is a bit late, this one, but it's something I wanted to talk about. And then it turned out you can have microtransactions Everybody went crazy as they did. You could also exchange real money for red orbs, which is essentially, the main form of currency. I'm not 100% sure what you can buy, but I assume it's new skill. I assume it's classic. Red orbs give you new skills, and now you can buy red orbs rather than unlock them. I mean, my thing with microtransactions, as ever, is it all depends on how they're implemented in the game. I've played plenty of games where they're there, and if you want to buy them, great. But if you don't, nobody cares. And in that sense, I don't have a problem with them because, a good business is all down to demand. And if people are going to buy them, I don't think you can criticize that. But of course, it all depends on if it becomes a whole murky, you can't play this game unless you pay extra money. And we don't know. So I think it's a bit too soon to throw toys at the pram, but I understand presidents suggest that it's not the best thing in the world.
Yeah, it's just so like every other week it seems that we're getting something like this, and it's just like I'm sort of, like I said, innocent till proven guilty. Like if I'm gonna feel like, I'm feeling like I need to pay to get past this,
that's fair. Yeah.
That's gonna be the problem. But I'm a little bit like, if people want to pay, then they can pay. And as much as people like Jim Sterling are like criticizing, well, it's not really player choice, I would argue that, well, it is player choice if they do it right. But obviously there could be a time where they're pressuring people into paying money, and then that won't be fun for anyone. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, really. I'm not too up in arms about it right now.
Well, I guess to me, it's all that classic thing, right? It's all about how it pertains to you, and I just don't play Devil May Cry, so I was like, meh, I don't care. I mean, to be fair, to give balance to everything, the way Capcom phrased it was, red orbs can be used to upgrade weapons and upgrade powerful new abilities for each character. As an additional option, players can purchase even more red orbs, which can be used for quicker upgrades or more continues. That's the one that worries me, more continues. This is completely optional, as the game has been balanced to provide ample orbs for play without purchase in mind. This just allows players more options to use red orbs at the pace and style they prefer to play. Now, I guess the ultimate argument to that is, shouldn't that be their job, figuring out the balance? Yep. But again, I wanted to bring it up. I saw a lot of people talking about it on Twitter, and I think if that had happened, it would you've got to address that stuff. So
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And that's that. I mean, that is literally the week in gaming. I don't think we could have covered that in any more detail should we have tried. I'm sure something will break as soon as we end. It always happens. I think it's happened the last two times we've gone off, and then something else has fallen down. Other little notes. I mean, I know that season 6 of Fortnite starts on Thursday, whatever. I think Fortnite at this stage is what it is. And obviously we're close to Call of Duty coming out, which will be interesting. As people...
I'm actually excited about that for the first time.
Well, the Battle Royale mode, man, I've heard very good things, so I'm certainly intrigued. I certainly think we'll have a big conversation when it comes out. I mean, like 10 days away, or whatever, a couple of weeks away, whatever it is. So we've got to get out before Red Dead. Everybody's got to get out before Red Dead. As always, thank you very much for listening. At Simon316, at Simon316 on Instagram and Twitter as well. Sam, I went to add you the other day and realised you're not on Twitter anymore.
No, but I have currently rejoined Twitter.
Oh, you have rejoined Twitter? Okay.
Yes, because I had a purge because I won't go.
Because Twitter, yeah, I understand. Do you know your username now or your gamer tag?
Sam Bishop, all one word, but with 3 P's at the end.
Sam Bishop with 3 P's. So you can follow Sam there. You can also listen to this podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/The Report Rules. Also, a lot of other nonsense up there, including reviews, some the other podcasts that I do, some mental health vlogs as well, because I'm very passionate about that stuff. I think that's it. Give us 5 stars on iTunes. Still trying to get on Spotify and all that noise, but I have news to share with that soon. But thank you very much for listening. Sam, thank you for your time as always.
My pleasure. Always my pleasure.
Thank you. And we will be back on Monday next week. We didn't do Monday this week because my voice went, as you probably heard throughout this. But yes, we'll be back then. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you again soon.